It's Sunday, May 26th, 233 days since the October 7th massacres and 233 days since the hostages were kidnapped to Gaza. Our interview with former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett coming up. Keeping you up to date, I'm Michael Dixon, and this is Stand With Us TV Live. Shalom from Israel. As we speak, the Stand With Us Solidarity mission is touring Israel, meeting with freed hostages, with families of current hostages, showing solidarity with the people of Israel, being briefed by high-level Israeli leaders, and bearing witness to the sites of atrocities of October the 7th. They're volunteering and doing much more, and I'll show you highlights a little later. Now, as part of that solidarity mission, I sat down with former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, and we'll show you that in just a moment. But first, here are the headlines from this week at war. This week saw significant escalations by Hezbollah launching barrages of rockets into northern Israel from Lebanon. In retaliation, the IDF has carried out deep strikes in Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah strongholds and infrastructure. The International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor announced plans to issue arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, Defense Minister Gallant, and top Hamas leaders for alleged war crimes. Major world leaders, including from the US and UK, spoke out against this egregious equivalence between the two. Meanwhile, in a political gift to Hamas, the International Court of Justice issued what is being interpreted as a conditional order that Israel halt military operations as needed to ensure certain protections for civilians in Rafah, a city in southern Gaza. The ICJ has also ordered that Rafah remain open, the crossing for deliveries of humanitarian aid from Egypt, and called on Hamas to release all hostages. Israel could accept the order as is, which would require it to submit a report within a month showing its compliance with these orders. Alternatively, Israel could reject the order. And if Israel chooses to reject it, the decision is likely to move to the United Nations Security Council, where the US is expected to veto it. Talks aimed at securing the release of Israeli hostages held in Gaza are resuming. The Israeli War Cabinet will meet to discuss the progress and strategies for the negotiation. Israeli Defense Forces recovered the bodies of 3 hostages, Hanania Blanca, Orion Hernandez Rado, and Michel Nissenbaum, who were captured by Hamas during the October 7th attack. The recovery took place during an operation in Jabalia in northern Gaza. There are now 125 remaining hostages in Gaza. An Iranian-backed militia in Iraq claimed responsibility for an attempted drone attack targeting a sensitive site in Eilat, Israel. The group stated that the attack aimed to disrupt life in that area. Norway, Ireland, and Spain have made moves to recognize a Palestinian state, leading to strong reactions from Israel that this is tantamount to a reward for Hamas for the October 7th massacres. And now to my interview with Naftali Bennett, filmed in front of an audience in Tel Aviv of the Stand With Us Solidarity mission. Our guest today is Israel's 13th Prime Minister, and in 2021 he led the most diverse government in the nation's history. Before moving into politics, he enjoyed a very successful career as a high-tech entrepreneur. And throughout his decade in Israeli politics, he served as Minister of Economy, Minister of Education, and Minister of Defense, and is known for innovations and bold reforms. He served as a combat soldier in Sayeret Matkal and as a company commander in the Maglan Special Forces Unit, where he commanded a series of operations in Lebanon behind enemy lines. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. Thank you very, very much for joining us. We are here with the Stand With Us Solidarity mission, led by CEO and co-founder and COO Raz and Jerry Rothstein, here in Israel to support the people of Israel. And we've toured the sites of devastation, and we're here to show our solidarity with all Israelis at this time. We're meeting with diverse leaders from across the spectrum, and we very, very much appreciate your time today. We have toured, as I mentioned, the sites of devastation, the Hamas atrocities. I just wondered on the outset, what went through your mind on October the 7th?
Well, first of all, Bruchim Habayim, welcome to Israel, and it matters. Your visit here matters, and when you go back, come back here again and again, and send your family and friends. If anything, we're much closer than we were on October 6th. October 7th. So like many Israelis, at 6:30 in the morning, sirens tore the air all across Israel. I was at home in Ra'anana with my family. We went down to the shelter and assumed it's some rocket attack that will pass. And then when I went back up to my room, I turned on my cell phone. At about 7:15, I begin to get WhatsApp messages, and as a way of background, I always made it my habit over the past decade as Minister of Defense, Minister of Education, whatever, that whenever there was a round of conflict between us and Hamas in the south, I made a habit always to go down and sleep at someone's home, almost randomly. I'd come with my toothbrush and sleep over, and to be with them. So I have another habit where I give out my cell phone so they can call me later on. It's a great way to get sensors of what's going on. So it turned out that 3 times in the past I slept over at Kibbutz Kfar Aza. So at about 7:15, I begin getting WhatsApp messages from Kfar Aza. Bennett, help! There's terrorists here, and that's a very rare thing. And I assumed that Kibbutz Kfar Aza was under attack. Little did I imagine that it's broader than just Kibbutz Kfar Aza. So I made 4 phone calls to the whole senior defense leadership of Israel, some of them who I had appointed, and said, all right, Kfar Aza is under attack, send soldiers now, assuming that within 10 minutes top, we'd close up this event. But then I continue getting these messages at 8, 8:30, 9, 10, and it just goes on. And at some point, the folks I was in touch with, they invited me or brought me into a WhatsApp group of Kfar Aza, sort of a Craigslist of Kfar Aza. That's what the name was, Yad Shniya, second-hand merchandise of Kfar Aza. And that's where they were all communicating, all of the kibbutz members. And I'm seeing fold online every 3 seconds, help, help, there's terrorists out here, they're coming, they knocked on my door and suddenly they go silent. And I cannot believe this, so I make more phone calls and nothing happens. Then what I did, I got in my car and drove as fast as I could with my security folks to my former reserve unit, which is called the Ugda 98, Division 98. It's the sort of the division of all the commando units, those who had served in commando units. And I see hundreds and hundreds of soldiers and like long lines of cars. Everyone wants to join and help. But when I came into the base, I see all these soldiers getting organized for war. And then it dawned on me what's going on. There's a semantic disconnect. Because when you get ready for a war, even a surprise war, it takes 6, 7, 8 hours to gear up, to get your communication devices, to get your special rations, food, camouflage. But I then at that moment realized there's a disconnect because people think we're going to war, but it's not war right now, it's a massacre. And a massacre happens in a matter of seconds and minutes, not in a matter of hours. We don't have hours. Every 2 seconds a Jew is dying. So, and just to give a sense, if we get in a car right now and drive without traffic jams, because no traffic jams on October 7th, Shabbat, You drive quickly, in less than an hour you're there. From where we are, an hour. So we're an hour away from this massive inferno, and people are getting organized for war. And so what I did, I went from one commander to another. There were 8 battalions there, and I called over the commander and said, come here, listen, stop everything, stop gearing up. Every 5 soldiers you have, get them on with weapons, with rifles, have them have like 8 magazines and a helmet. That's all you need. Get the hell down, get the hell down, stop everything, go, go, go. And by then it wasn't only Kfar Aza, and that helped a bit, but everything was slow. Everything was incredibly frustrating. I'm particularly close to Kfar Aza, but many other locations. I want to point out a couple of things, if I may. October 7th tells 2 stories. One is a epic, colossal failure of the state of Israel on our most fundamental mission, on our raison d'etre. We were established to prevent Jews from being slaughtered in pogroms. Quite literally. We never made the promise that we'd prevent terror. Terror happens, but most terror attacks in Israel, and there have been thousands and thousands throughout the years, you wrap them up anywhere between 5 seconds and 5 minutes. That's the usually around 1 minute. Someone in the area will have a pistol. This was not a terror attack. This was a full-blown pogrom that went on for hours and hours, and we failed. It was a colossal intelligence failure, operational failure, and starting October 7th on to about a month following October 7th, also a total meltdown of almost all governmental services. Like nothing worked. The whole thing collapsed. So a massive failure of government and institutional Israel. And shame on us. But the second half of the story, which is no less important, is a remarkable rise of Am Yisrael, of the people, to a degree that even I, who felt that I know the people of Israel rose up with strength, raw strength and courage. So I estimate that about 3,000 men and women from all around Israel on Shabbat morning, the moment they heard this, they got in cars, drove down to fight without getting any order from anyone, because nothing worked, on their own, to fight, to save lives of people they never met, not talking about cousins or brothers, just, and some of them died. Some of the people that drove into harm's way. You know, on September 11th, 2001, I was living in Manhattan, and the towers fell. I was in Midtown. I'm sort of like the Forrest Gump of disasters. So I was there, and I remember this river of people going north, and only the firefighters went south to harm's way, and that's their job. Here, this is still unbelievable. You know, I'll tell you a story about a guy called Elchanan. He's from a community near Yerushalayim, 42, 43 years old, a bit chubby. He heard what's going on, called up his brother and nephew. Two of them had pistols, one of them had a rifle. The nephew had a rifle from his reserve. And they drove down to Kibbutz Be'eri. And for 16 hours straight, these 2 middle-aged men and the nephew went from one home to another, evacuating families to the entrance of the kibbutz, which was safe, and back in, under fire, back and forth. For 16 hours, they evacuated and saved 100 people. And on Sunday morning at 9 a.m., Elchanan took a bullet, and he died. and he left behind 5 children. But my point is, there are hundreds of men and women, Elchanans, that did this. And you'll notice I keep on saying women, there's a reason. I have a mea culpa. Prior to October 7th, I would position myself in the more conservative opinion that I had felt that IDF is moving too quickly with women in very, very combat units. I thought it was too fast, and I was wrong. I was just wrong. On October 7th, these young women, they kicked ass. I mean, they went down and fought and killed terrorists and saved lives. I'll tell you a story. What's her name? 21-year-old girl, Tal Biton. She just finished the army. She came over to my home a few weeks ago and told me her story. So she's a tank commander of a female tank crew. They were 50 kilometers away from the fence. They just drove, like sped over, found a massive breach in the fence where terrorists were trying to come in. They blocked it, killed lots of terrorists, and I believe they saved 5 or 6 communities that simply by blocking, that didn't get hit because they were there. And at the end of I'm like blown away. This girl, she's 21 years old. Then she says, could I ask a favor? And I said, sure, anything. Could we do a short video? I want to put it up on my TikTok. and I just laughed and I said, of course. But it's so funny because we'd written off the young generation. I knew they're really smart and innovative and entrepreneurial and startup nation. That I know. I didn't know they're tough. I didn't know they're strong. I thought they were soft. And so I guess the bright part is how tough a nation we are. On October 8th, I coined the term Am Shel Arayot, a nation of lions. I want to give you a data point that people are not aware of. There were 4 massacres that took place in Kibbutz Kfar Aza, in Kibbutz Nir Oz, Kibbutz Be'eri, and at the Nova Festival. There were another ballpark of 50 battles at other kibbutzim where we won. And when I say we, it's usually 6, 7, 8, or 9 defenders, civil defenders, maybe with a policeman, maybe with some soldier which was around, or 5 soldiers which came over, defending usually on average between 30 to 100 terrorists. And in all of these other cases, I'm talking about Erez, Yad Mordechai, Mefalsim, Nir'am, Kibbutz Saad, Kibbutz Alumim, all the way down to En Absor, Kisufim, Kerem Shalom. In all these places, we won at incredibly bad odds. And again, it's the people that saved the day. Now, why am I telling you all of this? You've been here since Sunday, right? That's enough time for you to get the vibe, which is we're freaking depressed, right? Everyone's depressed. You can't. Everyone's under tremendous sadness and anxiety, which is fully understandable. But depression is not a good strategy, and I draw my strength from this, because the bottom line, if the story of Israel right now is we have an amazing nation, much better, I believe, we have the best younger generation in the world. The combination of smart and innovative and entrepreneurial and with initiative, times tough, times we're having a lot of kids in Israel. Israel's the only country in the world that is having kids, a Western country, I mean. Everyone else, and not only the Haredim, even without the Haredim, we're at positive growth. So that's like the fundamentals of the company. If we were a company, the fundamentals.
And you've had to go in front of the cameras, in front of the international media. You see the kind of things that Israel is being accused of. How do you respond then when you get the charges of genocide, famine, etc., etc.?
It's sometimes I almost lose my breath from the how preposterous it's crazy. It's totally divorced from reality. It's like you turn the world upside down, and it teaches us that what we learn about our history is true. That sometimes you look at history, even ancient history, and you can't believe that it actually happened. And now we're seeing live how just the world is turned over. Genocide is a systematic, deliberate attempt to eliminate another nation or part of a nation. We neither have the intent nor are we doing anything of that sort. We're defending ourselves, and certainly there's no intentional starvation. We've already brought in over 400,000 tons of food and medical aid. If you run the numbers, it's about 1.5 pounds of food per person per day. That's it's not a 5-star hotel by any means. It's tough. It's very unpleasant to be a Gazan right now, moving from one tent to another. But that's what it is. There's no there is one party that is working hard to starve people, and that's Hamas, which is hijacking and raiding the food that does enter, and then selling it in the black market, and simply some Gazans can't afford it. Now, if someone expects that we are supposed to go fight Hamas to extract the food that they took away and hand it over, and there's a limit how much we can fight for the enemy. But frankly, you guys are living in that world of lies right now in America, and I see what you guys are going through, and which is a huge wake-up call. I never imagined that in the United States of America we'd see what we're seeing now, and we need to work together. I'm sure you know as better than us, or have ideas of how we can go about it. One thing I would say is not to be apologetic. Fight back. One conclusion I've reached: we're never going to be loved. Jews are not going to be loved. Let's not be apologetic. Let's be respected and feared.
One aspect of
feared by enemies, of course.
Feared by enemies.
Don't walk down Manhattan and everyone's scared of a Jew with a kippah. Yeah.
One aspect of that, of course, is the college campus. So you're seeing these encampments, you're seeing this really radical activity happening on the academic front. What's your response? How do you respond to that?
I see, but again, I'm curious and certainly open to hear other directions. My analysis: this is a combination of three things. It's a cocktail of two unlikely partners: radical progressive, coupled with radical Islamic folks. But I also see the third element is clearly an organized and very well funded program. So that's look, the woke thing and the radical progressive problem. Set Israel and Jews aside, this is a big problem for the United States of America. Forget about us. Say we didn't exist, because they're raising a generation of young men and women that are incredibly sensitive about every microaggression, and our young men and women are fighting with rifles for their lives. So obviously we're going to be tougher and more resistant. You develop very cloistered and soft people that can't deal with the world. The world's tough. In the real world, no one's going to care about your feelings. So get over it, and right. And I've noticed, I've been on campus and I see some students, they're like, by no stretch of imagination are they ready for the world. The world's tough. Life is tough. Well, we all live. So that's a problem for America. It's a problem for Israel, of course. It's to be seen what happens when they grow up and become 30 years old. Are they still going to be idiots, or are they going to grow out of it? And they just might grow out of it, because in life no one built anything great if they were offended all day. Right? Leonardo da Vinci, I bet you, and Edison, and all of these folks, they weren't walking around being offended as a way of life. So that's why I believe that we may see a rebound. We are seeing a considerable rebound in corporate America. There's much less DEI, much less ESG. If you look, it was the fad of the moment, and now it's sort of ESG is environment, social, and governance. It was a fad that you need to be all mushy and sensitive instead of build your company. So I think from Israel's standpoint, we need to do two things. One is we need to work much more on persuasion and influence at a whole different level. We have to have an organ, and you guys are doing it. Stand With Us does it, but we need a very big magnitude to work on this, to get in the ring and start fighting these Qataris and the whatever. The second thing is we, as Israel, need to reduce, I can't say eliminate, but reduce our immediate defense dependence on anyone, including America. So some things are still, I cannot exaggerate the degree of connection we have with America. By the way, it goes both ways. America enjoys a lot of tangible benefits from this, right? America gets all the Iron Dome technology for itself as well, and America gets intelligence, and we're saving lives. For example, one lesson learned: let's just buy more ammunition so we don't run out in the middle of a war, right? And that we can do it. We've got a 560 billion GDP. That's it's not Jaffa oranges of the 50s. We've got an economy, and so we can contain this.
There seems to be a trend for countries, particularly European countries, saying that now is the time for a Palestinian state. Your response?
First of all, as I can call this a cucumber, but it doesn't become a cucumber because I call it. A cucumber is green. You can eat it and other stuff. No, but let's look at what a state is defined by. Go to Wiki, and you'll see that a state has a government that effectively controls the people. A state has defined borders. A state has defense forces. There's a bunch of parameters, and it's simply not there. So, but that's only half of the argument. The other, I would say this: there's a huge disconnect on the desirable outcome, and here I want to be open with you. Israelis, as a result of October 7th, this has been so deep that Israel has moved about 15% to be more hawkish. I don't want to say right-wing, because right-wing denotes other dimensions of, let's call it, less liberal, so on the defense element, it's 15 degrees more right-wing. That's a lot. That's a sea change. And I'm talking about kibbutzniks that were lefties, and they don't want to hear about the Gazans and everyone. So now, why is this? Because of reality. reality has when it's so extreme, no one, barely anyone in Israel today, I'm talking about the people, thinks that in the foreseeable future it's a good idea to establish a Palestinian state in the heart of Israel. And the reason is that there were actually two mega events that happened that changed Israel, moving to the more hawkish side. First one was the Second Intifada, which came right after Ehud Barak had offered pretty much everything, more than everything. He offered 75% of the ancient city of Jerusalem was going to be sovereign Palestinian. That's crazy. And they said no, and then killed 1,600 Israelis in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. It was a horrible period. And that was a massive failure, because we had piloted much of what a Palestinian state means. Areas A and B became effectively a Palestinian state, and it blew up. And then fast forward to 2005, in Gaza, we effectively founded a Palestinian state. We actually gave them everything they do need, which was we pulled out of Gaza all the way back to the 1949 line, right, to the very last centimeter. We expelled all the Jewish citizens by force. We pulled out all the soldiers, 100%, and we handed the control, the keys, to Mahmoud Abbas, to the PA, the moderate so-called PA. And this is really important. We applied no siege or anything of that sort, no blockade at the beginning. And then they started shooting rockets within weeks. Dozens of rockets, hundreds of rockets, thousands of rockets, and ultimately tens of thousands of rockets over the past 18 years since 2005. And we didn't want to go back in, so we had, every few years a round of war, and then we had October 7th. So the sense in Israel is we tried a Palestinian state twice. Twice it blew up in our faces. We're not going to do it again, at least for the foreseeable future. We're not going to found another Palestinian state. I'm saying this because I'm fully cognizant of what's going on outside. Everyone, it's common wisdom that there's going to be a Palestinian state. But it's totally divorced from the people of Israel and the mainstream of Israel. The liberal, mainstream, reasonable people like us are totally against it, which is why it's not going to happen, and it's counterproductive to try and force, it's very condescending to try and impose on a nation something that we think is suicide. We're not 10 million idiots that we need America to tell us what the right thing for us is. We're the ones who pay the price. It's not real, it's wrong, and it's counterproductive. And that's why, I'm against.
Two quick questions, and if we can, quick answers, and then I'm going to hand over to our audience to ask their questions. Prior to October the 7th, it looked like a normalization deal was going to be made with Saudi Arabia. Do you foresee that?
Ultimately, I believe there will be a deal. I think in the short term it's unlikely because for various reasons it's been coupled or linked to Israel agreeing to a path down to a Palestinian state, which we just discussed. So as long as that linkage exists, it's going to be on hold.
And finally, we at StandWithUs are a non-political organization. We support Israel, period, and always will. But should we expect to see you in the Prime Minister's office again?
Yeah, so I'll dodge that question.
Okay, let's hand over to our audience, please, and I'm going to ask for really concise, to-the-point questions.
Isn't it in Israel's best interest just to take it out?
Well, you're preaching to the choir. A few years ago, I introduced what I called the octopus doctrine, because I think Israel, for the past 30 years, has had the wrong strategy. Effectively, we have an octopus of terror whose head is in Tehran and sending its tentacles all across the Middle East through proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Syria, Iraq, Yemenites, for heaven's sake. And we have played to their strategy is to shed our blood, to bleed us white on skirmishes on our border, while they get off the hook. And my strategy was, no, we should try and avoid local tactical battles and ultimately push for the collapse of the Iranian regime. As Prime Minister, I began effecting or implementing this strategy. It was discontinued when I finished. So yes, we need to, look, Iran is sort of like the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union. Not only is it radical ideology and dated and all that, it's also corrupt and incompetent, despised by its own people, and it will collapse. But the question is when. And using the Soviet Union analogy, I don't know if we're now in the year 1985 or 1955, right? And ultimately it collapsed in 1989. I'm not talking about kinetic attacks. America never attacked Russia directly, but I'm talking about empowering domestic opposition there. I'm talking about social unrest, cyber, covert and overt and other stuff. When I was Prime Minister, according to foreign sources, a bunch of people began dying in Tehran, bad people, but not related to the nuclear thing. My strategy is accelerate the collapse of Iran and slow down the nuclear progress and try and collapse Iran before they reach a bomb.
You said that Israel can work without the United States and be independent in tough decisions. If Israel would go against recommendation from the United States.
I didn't say that we should ignore America, but actually it's easier than what we think. Imagine you have a barrel of credit, political capital credit that you have with America. And you can spend that credit and also refill it. You can spend it. What I did as Prime Minister, I was very hawkish as Prime Minister. People don't realize it because I didn't run around talking about it. But I'll give you 2 examples where I stood up, but quietly, while respecting America. We don't have to do everything America tells us to do, but we have to work with mutual respect and being tough on our stuff. So by and large, whenever we can accommodate something that can help America, definitely yes. But if it goes against the national interest, then no. 2 examples. When I was Prime Minister and I met President Biden, there were 2 big asks that he had of me. One was to agree to reopen the American consulate for Palestinians in Jerusalem, and I refused. I said no, but I said it quietly, and there was a period where there was talk about it, and it quietly faded away. You know, it's sort of out of your awareness. And so I didn't empty the barrel, yet I stood up for Israel. And I was also asked by President Biden to commit to him that I wouldn't surprise America on Iran if we do something in Iran. And I said in so many words, I said you're not going to always want to know what we're doing, but in the broad stroke of things, I'll try and keep you in the know, which I don't know what I just said. And that was the point. So I basically said no, but again, while respecting him, I also never lied. I always told him the truth. And I said, we disagree on this. This is what we're going to do. I hear what you're saying. I'm going to try and accommodate it here and here and here. But on this, I can't. And they respect that. If you don't lie and if you respect them publicly and you don't look to make local political gains at their price, people respect you. So I think you can achieve both. On core security aspects for Israel, definitely we need to do what's right for Israel. And if there's a price to pay, pay the price. Our history teaches us that time and again, rare cases, but it happened quite a few times, we didn't listen to what we were told. We bombed Iraq in 1981 and destroyed their nuclear facility, and there was a short embargo. This is President Reagan on F-16s to Israel, but after a few months it evaporated, and later on everyone thanked Israel for doing it. So we didn't listen. In 1967, we applied sovereignty to Jerusalem against the explicit desire of the United States, and Jerusalem is ours. So we didn't listen. But where we can, and there's no price, or it doesn't hurt our fundamental interests.
The second part is, how can you control the education in an Arab street in Israel and abroad?
Education, look, Arab Israelis do not go through anti-American education. Israeli Arabs are, by and large, on a fairly, they're on a fairly positive trajectory. Israeli Arabs, more women are working than before, contrary to public perception. I'm not suggesting that all of them are pro-Israel. Unfortunately, there's a considerable group, not a majority, but not an insignificant group of Israeli Arabs who are against Israel. But most want to be part and parcel of Israel. Today, I went to check up, and my cardiologist is an Arab Israeli, and the majority of Arab Israelis want to become part of Israel, and we need to help and embrace that. We don't have to be ashamed, don't have to apologize for that. That's what we need to do because it's in Israel's national interest. If you're Zionist, you should embrace Arabs who want to become part of Israel. And you shouldn't go against it, even if it buys you some cheap populist shots. The Israeli, they're here, they live here, they're not going anywhere. So why not embrace those who want to be part of us and fight very tough against those who use violence or nationalistic undermining of Israel?
Can you address the hostages, what your thoughts are?
Well, on the hostages, it's just such a disaster. I mean, it's in our wildest dreams we couldn't imagine that we'd be where we are right now. I think we need to create leverage on Sinwar, and the leverage on Sinwar is to send tanks over to Sinwar, and only then he'll be willing to come for a deal.
Can you address the day after?
On the day after, I believe that the best model is post-World War II Germany, where you first had to fully defeat the Nazis, so everyone understood they're gone, they're not coming back. And only then could you start the denazification process. And interim, I would set up a appointed technocratic government with meaningful leadership by Egypt and other countries, Saudis, Emirates, etc., and local competent Palestinians. And that would go on for 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And in parallel to the governing, so you do 3 things in parallel. We clean up Hamas totally, and that takes a couple of years like what we did in Judea and Samaria. Second thing is you govern Gaza in the interim with this appointed group. And the third is you denazify Gaza, meaning you ensure that they stop poisoning the minds of the younger generation at school, in the media, at mosques. And after 5, 6, 7, 8 years, at the right point in time, you can perhaps allow them to choose their own leadership. If you try and do it too quickly, you'll fail.
One final message, if I may, to our Stand With Us supporters, our activists, our students on the ground in doing work here in post-October the 7th Israel, and of course with rising anti-Semitism around the world. What would you say to them?
Well, my message to Stand With Us staff and volunteers and friends and members, first of all, is thank you. It matters. Every single thing you do matters. Secondly, don't be silent. Stand with us. Be with us, and don't allow lies to be out there. Fight every time there's a lie. Give a counter punch, not a physical one. And don't apologize. Don't be apologetic. Be proud to be connected and part of a beautiful Jewish nation and Jewish state, Jewish and democratic state, which is a beautiful wonder. We're going to do the fight here against these terrorists, and you guys fight the spiritual war, the war of public opinion, and we're one, and together we'll win. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sure.
So we're so grateful that you joined us here tonight, and really you speak with pride, and that feels very close to us because we are all so proud. We're proud Zionists. That is Stand With Us. That's what we teach. That's what we give our students. And you left one thing out I just want to add to your analysis of what's going on the college campuses. The administrators don't follow their own laws on campus.
Right.
That is a big problem for us. Okay, with that said, I'm going to give you the mic. And this is for you.
Thank you.
As I mentioned earlier, our Stand With Us Solidarity mission is currently touring Israel. In addition to meeting the president and senior leadership, they're visiting with the families of the kidnapped, making condolence calls to those who've lost loved ones, making sandwiches for soldiers, sitting with wounded warriors, bringing gifts for the displaced, and hosting a giant barbecue for IDF soldiers, and much more. Take a look.
Has made over 500 sandwiches.
Beautiful. And that mission is still ongoing in Israel this week. In just a moment, a beautiful final video to show you. But before that, June the 2nd is Stand With Us Day, celebrating our 23rd anniversary. We're hosting a crowdfunding campaign, and you can donate or host your own fundraiser to raise money with friends and family. Every donation gets doubled. Head to standwithus.com to find out more and keep the work that we do even stronger, particularly in these tough times. And so finally, a pick-me-up. We wrap up today's show with the background of horrible anti-Semitism on campus. Here's a beautiful moment. Friends of Stand With Us, John Ondrasik joins with fellow singer Matis Yahu, singing One Day in front of 1,500 Israel supporters on the campus of MIT.
God bless all you beautiful people out there. Yeah. Let's go. Don't stop. Yeah.
Such a great video. We're sending support to the IDF and love to our brothers and sisters and allies worldwide. Stay strong and proud, even in the face of hostility. And our prayers for every hostage to be back home with their family soon. Together, we will prevail. Thanks for watching. Am Yisrael Chai.